I picked up obviously that you were born and raised until the age of 10 in the US, in California, and that at that age you moved to Lebanon, which is where your parents are originally from. Tell me about that move and how the changes that you experienced. Obviously, it's a very different lifestyle. How did you assimilate in Beirut? How did you, as a 10-year-old, how was that change for you? And I know that that happened right after the Civil War ended. So you were coming in after that was finished. But obviously, finding your way in a post-war environment is quite challenging. And I'm curious to hear from the eyes of a 10-year-old what that was like.
I mean, it was definitely a culture shock. In hindsight now, I think it was the best thing my family ever did, and I can't thank them enough for doing it. So I'll sort of say that up front because it really helped me develop into the person I am today, and that kind of grit, that resilience, that understanding that not everything is straightforward, I think is really important. So yeah, I mean, we moved in like early 1991 to sort of Lebanon, 1991. And whilst we were sort of coming out of civil war, as they say, it wasn't still stable. I mean, all throughout the 90s, there were still skirmishes and challenges like 96 with Grapes of Wrath and thereafter. So, whilst you moved into this world where it said it's after the war, you were still kind of living in the war. But with all the challenges came all the pluses as well. So yes, you leave sunny San Diego, which is stunning, and you move into, Beirut, just emerging from a pretty rough civil war, and everywhere. I mean, just the basics, the things that you take for granted: electricity, water, uh, normal streets, garbage, rubbish men who are able to, like, just standard things that you just think are, just exist everywhere, don't exist. But what you get in exchange for that is just the incredible surrounding yourself by incredible family and community that I had a bit of growing up in California, but not like that. I got to live with my grandmother, with my cousins, second cousins, I mean, you know how it is there. The families are like, 50, 60 in a family.
Yeah,
And it was brilliant. I mean,
it's like it takes a village. It's that
it literally is a
mentality.
village.
Yeah, which I love.
Yeah, it was literally a village. And,
Yeah.
my mom's from the south of Lebanon. We would go down every Friday after school and stay there all weekend till Sunday night. And honestly, I don't even remember being at home. We would just be out in the fields playing with I mean, it was just brilliant. But it shows you the fragility of life, I think, and also how there's inequity in life. And so growing up in that environment, it taught me a lot about being grateful and thankful for what we have, for empathy and sympathy to others that don't have, and how it doesn't matter how young, small, or big you are. Anyone can make a small change or play a role in changing someone's life, no matter how small you might think it is. It could be something huge for them. And so we immersed ourselves growing up there. My grandma ran a number of charities. She was very philanthropic. And so we just immersed ourselves in all kinds of activities, taking food produces to people's homes, spending time with disabled children, the elderly, and in places like Dar al Ajaza. I mean, we just did anything that we could to sort of make a difference. And I remember that that was largely an influence from her and from my mother, who, you know, living, I mean, probably just to cap it, living in Lebanon was not easy for business people. So my father had to live in Saudi while we lived in Lebanon, Saudi Arabia. So he would come and go. So we were largely raised by my mother and my grandmother. It was a very matriarchal house. I'm one of four sisters. It was like all women in a home. And so it was very much about empowering us to follow our dreams, be purposeful in everything that we do, be empathetic, not take anything for granted, and give back to the community. And so anything that we did had that kind of theme at home. And I remember my grandma's living room always had people coming, asking for help. I mean, it was just constantly full. There was like people in and out all the time. And that was really helpful for me to grow up. And she was, I mean, we were best friends. I was very close to her. Sadly, she died very young at 63 of a heart attack in her sleep. But she really kind of made me the person I am. And I remember we would have these conversations, about life and, philosophical conversations. And she would always say to me, forget all the shiny and the money and all that stuff. Just make sure that whatever you do builds legacy, makes impact, because nothing will satisfy you more than that. Trust me, I know, she was giving me like her life lessons. And I held true to that, I hope. I mean, I tried in everything I do to do that. So I chose to be a surgeon because of that, because of what I'd seen in Lebanon, and because the desire to help improve people's quality of life. And since then, I would say every pivot or decision I have taken has always held true to that core, but shaped and dressed differently.
And I know that as you were developing your surgical career, you developed an interest in creating a business relating to your medical work. And I know that that started out almost not quite in tandem with your career in medicine, but very quickly after that, you realized that there was a space that you could be part of that was innovative and bringing the medical care to a larger community. Explain to me how the original idea for Proximie came about, and eventually how it developed to what it is today.
Yeah, I mean, the funny part of all this is I never started out with the idea of setting up a company. I probably wouldn't have even known where to start from that perspective. As I mentioned, I used to work in global health. I mean, I still do, but through Proximie, not individually. But for over 10 years. I also spent about 6 to 8 years working with medical device companies, helping them scale training on new products, deliver the research and the evidence about why these products were value added to patient care, and ultimately help them redesign clinical pathways to bring in these new devices into the hospital, into the front line. And so, as you can imagine, with the global health hat, with the med device hat, and of course, my clinical practice, I was on the road a lot, traveling back and forth, different countries. Sometimes, within a month, I'd be doing like 4 or 5 trips. And I think for me, as I started to think about the impact I was having, it kind of goes back to the discussions with my grandmother, is you always have to step back and sort of reflect on what impact you're having. How much value are you as an individual creating? And I'll caveat that by saying I think anyone who is involved in this work, for me, is a hero, because it takes a lot of emotional grit and resilience to go to these parts of the world and really try to help. But after 10 years of doing that, which are 10 years I was incredibly proud of, and very proud of the charities that did this incredible work, because we were able to change lives. It dawned on me around the time that the Lancet Commission published an article. And it was a big article that said that 5 billion people around the world lack access to safe surgery. And, for me, it was a kind of like a kick in the gut. I was just like, all this work we're trying to do and all this impact, and we're not even like, it's so incremental. And how are we going to change the world to deliver?
It's just a drop in the ocean. It's not enough. It was just not enough.
And in my head, I was like, how can I do more? And, whether that's because of my upbringing or the trauma of seeing everything we talked about in Lebanon, there was always this kind of like, I need to do more. I need to do more. I need to help more. And so I remember I was pregnant with my third child, and I was sitting in my operating room on one of those metal footstools, and I was waiting for them to wheel in the next patient. I was looking around the room, and I was thinking, gosh, I mean, this world of surgery is so analog. Everything that we do is so moment in time. It's so incremental. We don't capture the knowledge. We don't share it unless you're in the room. That's it. It's done. Like, case done. And all you end up with at the end is a written piece of paper that says, this is the operation that was done, and here's a few scribbles and a drawing, which has held us in good stead for a long time in surgery. But this concept of like, see one, do one, teach one, to me, just felt in a world where we're doing everything on our phones and everything is digitally connected and everything is data driven and transparent. Like, why wouldn't we turn the operating room into a digitally connected environment, or a place where I don't have to travel 14 hours to Vietnam. Like, couldn't I just dial in to the case and work with them? And so as I started to think through it, I realized that everything that was kind of off the shelf was more teleconferencing. It wasn't really designed for surgery. It was more about video, audio, as we're doing now. But what I really wanted to do was to really find a way to immerse yourself in that environment. So could I actually draw, show you, bring in other images and scans, like act, as if I'm in the room with you without having to be in the room with you. And that could be a really great first step into digitizing the operating room. And it was really just an idea. I mean, I was an academic. I used to publish a lot of papers. I was doing research. So I thought, well, this is a good research project. Why don't I just try that? So, self-funded a few engineers to build a prototype because the criteria for me, which I couldn't control with anything off the shelf, was this had to work on any device. This had to work with very low bandwidth because anywhere in the world, even in the UK and certain hospitals, the internet's not great. And it had to have really no noticeable lag because any lag or choppiness defeats the whole purpose. It doesn't feel genuine or authentic. The fidelity is
And the foundation and the foundation of the entire enterprise is that it's live surgeries. You're able to access live surgeries, right?
correct.
I know that you also have an extensive library of cases that have been done, surgeries that have been done that anyone can access and can. It's almost like a library of operations that you can learn from. But the basis of the company is live operations and being taught as you're going.
That was the first
Am I right?
entry point. You're right. That was the first entry point. So I
Yeah.
guess you could call it the wedge. I thought, how am I going to walk in? And I, being a practicing surgeon, I still practice. I'm still a surgeon. I think that's really, really important because there's an intimate knowledge of the psyche and the nuances of that environment that you have to really understand if you're going to build for that customer, that user. And so I knew that if I just walked in and said, "Hey, let's just record everything that you do and stream it," like that just would not have landed. It wouldn't have landed the right way. So what I really wanted to start with is, why don't we get you comfortable with live collaboration, teleproctoring, telementoring? This is great for your colleagues, great for your students, great for your residents, and it's a great way to connect with everyone and show them, how we're doing with our operations. Over time, we then started to encourage well, why don't you record your videos? Because now you have a library. Oh, and why don't we run some analytics on the videos? Because you could get more information about what. So we had to sort of phase it through to build the trust, build the comfort level, and build the access into hospitals. And right or wrong, I think for us, that has really helped us capture such a big footprint so quickly. There's one message, if any, that I can get across, is that this is not a problem in just some parts of the world. This is a problem everywhere. And so what we've tended to, and I've, what we tend to imagine or think is that, oh, this is really a problem for the global south or for LATAM or for parts of the world that don't have access. I can tell you, as a surgeon working in the NHS, we have the same problems here. Variability in care, variability in access. Why do some patients get one type of care and others a different? Why is surgery so unstandardized and uncodified? And so from that perspective, if you recognize the problem ever, then the software that you build or the solution that you build has to work in every environment. And so what I wanted to do was to take see one, do one, teach one, which is very analog, very incremental, very independent, siloed, into something called prepare, perform, perfect. A digital continuum that doesn't really matter whether you're a first-year med student or you're a senior surgeon, you're reminding yourself and preparing for a case. You can either watch a video or dial into a live case. The perform bit is you're doing your case. You might want to dial someone in to work with you or give a second opinion or just watch and learn from you. And then the perfect bit is I go back and look at my video and I get comparisons and analytics and information about how I've done.
I just wanted a sense of how you divide up your time. How does a typical week look these days for you between the hospital, between the business, between the family?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's I think saying that I've got it all balanced and down packed would be sort of an embellishment. I think there's good weeks and less good weeks. Um, I'm very lucky to be surrounded by, an incredible husband and children, but also an extended family. I have three very supportive sisters who drop things, at a drop of a hat and come and help if needed, and my parents who are very helpful as well. So that has always been my saving grace, my kind of anchor that helps me do all that I want to do. The weeks
Is all your
are
family living in London with you? Your sisters and your
no,
parents?
no, just my husband and children. They live between Beirut and Dubai, but they've never let me down. Anytime I need an urgent, I'm heading on a long trip, can someone come over? They'll be there. They've been really, really amazing cheerleaders. And my husband and kids have been incredibly, supportive. The kids, in a way, have grown to be quite independent and self-sufficient, which is not a bad thing. And I'm sure, when we sit down and have conversations, it's always hard. You want to attend everything at school. You want to be there for every coffee morning and every, class visit. But, we have a good understanding between us of, what things I can attend and what I can't. And I hope on the flip side of that, I'm showing them what it's like to craft your own journey, your own destiny, your own path, and that it's okay to not follow the norm and, kind of break the status quo. So I hope that's inspiring them in a different way. But my weeks are pretty dense. I mean, Monday to Friday is jam-packed, and I cover multiple time zones. So, I can start as early as 5, 6 in the morning, and then keep going till midnight on certain days. And it's a mix of clinical days, Proximie days, and sort of, standard just management admin days, and trying to do everything in between. But I'm quite strict about the weekend and really, I don't touch my laptop really on the weekend. It's kind of my energy rebuilding. So it's really about family, kids, friends, socializing, all the things that I need to kind of get me fresh and ready for Monday. So I don't do anything till about Sunday evening. And then Sunday evening, as most people, you go through your emails, you go through everything you need to do, your schedule for the week, and I make plans. And so far it's working. I kind of know myself when things are getting too much, I know how to claw back and balance my time. But I have to give my mom credit for time management. My mom was a teacher, and from a very early age, she would sit us down and talk us through sort of time management and managing your schedules and all those things during exam time. So I give her the credit for that.
And how do you see, what's next for you? The show is called What I Did Next. So do you envision that the next 5 years will be more of the same? Do you imagine that, 15, 20 years down the line, you will have hung up your scrubs and that you will be managing Proximie full time? Maybe, talking about this on a lecture circuit. I know you're already doing a lot of that, but do you envisage that that will become more of your day-to-day life?
I mean, I love the clinical, and I would want to retain some of there's something really special about that one-on-one time you have with a patient in the room, and you're just talking through what they go through. I think over time, though, what I would love to continue to develop myself is mentoring and helping other companies as well. So picking up board seats or mentorship advisory roles, because it's been a very interesting path for me, and we still have a lot to prove. I mean, we have a long way to go, but I think for my own personal development, that's kind of the next stage I'd love to get involved in. How can I sit on boards and understand that dynamic from the other side? And how can I continue to mentor? I do mentor quite a few individuals now, but trying to do that in a more formal setting, I think would be a really great next step for me.